In this video, we're going to look at remedies for breach of contract. So let's turn to the assignment. Let's go through what we need to be doing here. So in Part A, cancellation remedies, you're looking for 3 breaches of contract. Now, the actual breach of contract is the obvious one when a person doesn't do what they've promised to do, meaning they have breached a term of the contract, for example, not completing on the due date. However, there are circumstances where it's obvious to us the person is not going to complete the contract, they will breach it, or they in fact tell us they are not going to complete the contract, which is repudiation. And these 2 examples, anticipatory and repudiatory breach, these occur before any actual breach has occurred. And we want to be able to cancel the contract for these because it allows us to find somebody else to complete the work for us. In my example of providing sleep outs, if I contract to provide a sleep out to a homeowner for Christmas, for a child's birthday or a Christmas present, and by November the 10th, for example, I haven't done the work when I should have, when I have to have it finished by 20 December, can they cancel the contract to get somebody else to do it instead of me? Now, that's anticipatory breach. Now, on those facts, I'm a month before the due date, so no. But if my business had failed, I left the country, or some other examples, they may be able to say, well, you're not going to do this, so we want to get someone else to do the contract. So we are anticipating your breach of contract and we're cancelling and getting somebody else. Repudiation is where I simply say I won't do it. After that, you're going to have to look at remoteness. What losses can you claim for a breach of contract, and how much will you get paid to compensate for that breach of contract? So those are the issues we'll work through, and then you'll need to fill out the form here for the submission. So let's go to our legislation. So we'll go to the Contractual Remedies Act. We'll put that in and bring it up, which we've already looked at in relation to cancellation and damages for misrepresentation. For breach of contract, we only look at Section 7 for cancellations. Let's look at that. And as we go through it, you'll find that we use Section 7.3. We've used that 7.3a for misrep, but here we've got breaches of contract. We have a term and the contract is broken, so that's actual breach. Then we have anticipatory. It's clear that a term will be broken. And up here in 7.2, a party may cancel if another party repudiates the contract, making it clear he does not intend to perform his obligations under it. So a term is broken is actual breach. Clear that it will be broken is anticipatory breach, and the other party making it clear he does not intend to perform his obligations is repudiation of contract. Now, once we've established there is a breach of contract, our next question is, can we cancel because of that breach of contract? Now, if we talk first about actual breach, which is the term is broken, and anticipatory breach, it's clear it will be broken, then you can see down here it says where subsection 3b or 3c applies, a party may cancel it if and only if they have expressly agreed the truth or impliedly, or the effect is substantial. And this is the same as we talked about with misrepresentation. So the term is broken, it's clear it'll be broken, anticipatory, then you can cancel if and only if it's been agreed the truth is essential or the effect is substantial. Now, the difference here is between actual and anticipatory. You must go through this process and cover everything from down here. However, when we talk about repudiation, it simply says a party may cancel if, by words or conduct, another party repudiates, by making it clear they do not intend to perform. So cancellation for repudiation is all just in Section 7.2. So it's very straightforward for us. If the person repudiates, we can simply cancel. If the person actually breaches or we have an anticipatory breach, then we also have to have these additional requirements down here. So we can summarize this with a diagram. Here I've got actual breach, 7.3b, anticipatory, 7.3c, plus we have our requirements under 7.4. They agreed it essential at the start of the contract, or it has a substantial effect, then you can cancel. Whereas with repudiation, you say you won't do it, the person can cancel. So at this point, what we've managed to do is cancel the contract. And all that does is stop the contract in its tracks and no person has to perform. But then we want damages, compensation for this. We could also look at specific performance remedies or injunctions, but generally we're looking at damages. And we have a two-stage processes. Here we go for remoteness first. We can claim foreseeable losses. These are the obvious things which will flow from it, and special damages. And we can go for abnormal losses, which are additional issues if it's known they would occur to the other party. If I don't build a house on time for somebody, they may lose money because they're paying mortgages, they're paying additional rent, they may have mortgaged their house to support a business and they have to pay that back, and there's all sorts of losses. But the only foreseeable losses are simply that they won't have a house and they may have to pay storage and potentially rent. So that's all the foreseeable losses. If they told me about the additional things, I may have to pay them. Then we move on to the quantity issue. And in the quantum side of it, how much? The test there is to say how much money would it take to put the person back in the position they should have been. And as discussed in class, these are for actual losses the person could reasonably foresee. It does not include such things as loss of enjoyment or stress unless the contract is for enjoyment. So holidays for tourist purposes would include enjoyment. Going out to dinner might be considered an enjoyment issue, and therefore you might get additional damage for that purpose in addition to the cost of food, for example. So what you need to be doing here is estimating the loss to be paid for. So let's go through to my example here. So my business was, I have a factory, I manufacture these little buildings here, I put them on my truck, and I have my builders turn up and install them at your house. So that's the contract, and I would contract to do it by a specific date. So what could I actually do here? So our first one was actual loss, or actual breach of contract. So how would that occur? Well, pretty easily if, for example, I had a contract where it was due 14 February and today it's the 5th of May, I'm in actual breach of contract. I'm simply late under the terms of the contract. I could also build it wrong. It might not be square, it might not be the right height. It may have used the wrong cladding, the wrong roofing, the wrong glass, something that's in the contract or something implied. For example, that I haven't built it up to the building code, which is implied into the contract automatically. Any of these would amount to actual breach of contract. Okay, so actual is generally the easier one to look at. Then we get this issue of anticipatory breach. Now, this can be much more difficult because it must be clear the person will breach. So what if my factory there has managed to burn down? Well, that would mean I don't have a factory up here to build, but could I find another premises to rent and use it, or could I get somebody else to build it for me? So it's hard to say that's anticipatory breach. I have a builder, or maybe I'm the only builder, and that's all good. Unfortunately, broken leg time. Is that anticipatory breach? Well, possibly, particularly if it's close to the due date, because it's hard to get other builders, particularly in the current market, and that may be considered anticipatory breach. What if, for example, the builder was in fact found growing marijuana and arrested by the police and put in jail? That certainly could be anticipatory breach. Now, in all these examples, we can argue lots of things and say, no, it's not anticipatory breach because there's a possibility that you could ring up from jail and get your friend to finish the job. But you have to be reasonable in these circumstances and think, would a court consider this to be sufficient justification for the client to cancel the contract with me to supply this sleep out? And I think certainly if the factory burns down close enough to the due date, yes. A broken leg on a sole trader builder, yes. Getting arrested and carting off to jail, most definitely anticipatory breach. The third one, repudiation. This is much more straightforward. So here we have our builder heading off on holidays and just gets on the phone. Sorry, going back holiday back in 2 weeks, do your job then. and we'll assume that that means coming back after the due date. That is clear repudiation of contract. Now, can we cancel? For this one, we can most certainly cancel. It's repudiated. For the actual breach, if the sleep out is going to be a week late and it's 2 months from Christmas, it's not substantial. Anticipatory here, fire burning down. Well, again, we're concerned about whether it has a substantial effect on the other party. The effect would be a substantial delay or potentially no delivery at all. So that would be a substantial breach and we could cancel the contract. Now the last part of this is to pick one of these three options and go and then ask the question about damages. So if I'm late or don't deliver with any of these, what are the foreseeable losses? Well, in my case, it's very clear. It's foreseeable they won't get their building. So the loss is going to be not having this building on time. If it's for a child's birthday and such, that could be a loss of enjoyment, but it's not part of the contract. It's just a building, so they can't get that. They may have to go to another builder and pay more money for the same sleep out. So if they have to pay $20,000 instead of my $15,000 contract, their losses are $5,000. So those losses are clearly foreseeable. If they told me they were, for example, a commercial photographer and they needed this to be put in a particular place for a child's birthday celebration for which they are paid $10,000 for the day for videos, photographs, and all the rest of it, and if it's not ready a week before, the contract will be cancelled, then we have abnormal losses, and I could be liable for those if I knew about them at the start of the contract. Okay, so what am I going to put in here? Well, for my actual loss, I'm just going to put it's late. For my anticipatory breach, I could use the arrest. I think I could use the fire burning down as well. For repudiation, well, the phone call on the way to the airport would most certainly work. So in here, you need to explain what you understand by the three types of breach as discussed, and then come up with the three fact examples as, for example, in mine. So explain the remoteness test, which is about foreseeable losses, special damages, and abnormal losses for those known about. And then quantum. And the test here is sufficient money to put the person in the position they would have been if the breach had not occurred. For the cancellation, you simply have to go through and explain to the extent to which it can be cancelled for essential agreements or for substantial, and then find a fact example where you can say the breach of contract by you is substantial and your client could cancel the contract. And today we have a tui, just having breakfast on something.